Hey everyone, it's Lisa with Are You My Cousin? And it's time for our Thursday YouTube Live. I always want to say Facebook, YouTube Live. And today, as you can see, I have Mary Eberle is back with me today. And I am so excited to have you with me, Mary. Thanks for coming again.
Oh, thanks for having me, Lisa. It's great to be here.
You are welcome. Well, we'll give everybody kind of a few minutes to get into the chat room or to the live session here before we get right into the really fun stuff. As you guys probably know, if you have or if you haven't heard already, I'm actually not in my home office, as you could tell by my background. I'm in Texas at my daughter's house, so I have a little different setup for you today. Let's see who's here. We have Sherry from North Texas. Okay, Sherry, we're in North Texas because I'm in Texas too. Lily back from Southern Mississippi, and Lori. Hey, Lori from Granby, Massachusetts, and we have Mary Jane from Pennsylvania. You guys are always so faithful. Thank you so much for showing up. I really appreciate that. It's good to know that you guys are here every week. It's like meeting old friends each week. So thank you so much for showing up. Okay, so this week at Are You My Cousin? We have there was a new post on the website this week, and I just completely blanked out on what that one was, but I'll come to it. So there's a new post over there for you guys to go see. Still putting new videos out here on the YouTube channel twice a week, so feel free to make sure you're checking into those and enjoy. Feel free to also go back and watch some of the old videos as well. The YouTube lives are also on the YouTube channel, so you can go back and watch any that you miss. And I would love it, guys, if you would hit the subscribe button. That way you know when you'll be notified when I'm going live or when I post a new video. And also, if you want to, feel free to share these videos with your other genealogy friends. Anybody you think that might be interested in this type of video, absolutely feel free to share it with whomever. All right, well, we got lots of folks coming in. So, hey, Cindy is out in San Francisco. Plano, Texas. Sherry, I am about an hour. I'm down in Fort Worth, so I'm just south of you. Oh, we have somebody from North Central Texas. So Texas is well represented today, guys. Hey, Dave is back from Washington State. Christine out in California. Carolyn out in Arizona. Erica in Kennesaw, Georgia. Hey, Kathy from Ohio. And we have Nebby Bayless from Richmond, Virginia. Yay! All right, we need North Carolina represented today, guys, since I'm not there. But welcome all. As you can see, if you've just come in, I have Mary Eberle of the DNA Hunters with me today. Mary and I met back, I guess, in January in a class that we were doing together. I'm sorry, we were attending together. We weren't giving it. And so we have been in a master class together and really gotten to be good friends. And she specializes, as I said, in DNA, which, as you guys know, if you followed me for any amount of time, I am not a DNA expert. I know just enough to kind of get by and just enough to get myself in trouble. So when I need DNA help, I actually go outside into somewhere else. So, but Mary is your lady to talk DNA. So, Mary, I guess let me go ahead and introduce you because I think some people may not realize that you are a former patent attorney. Is that correct? In the biotech field?
Right. 13 years.
Wow. And so now she's changed. That seems actually like a pretty is it a natural progression? I mean, you had the interest in genealogy to move over into the DNA field.
Right. I've got the DNA background. I was actually in a research lab before law school. So I was 10 years in various research labs. I developed DNA tests while I was there, not for genealogy, but for people that needed bone marrow transplants.
Oh, wow.
So I took that training into my biotech patent work. And then I left that and started DNA Hunters.
Well, that sounds fascinating. That sounds really fascinating. And I know you've got something new and exciting you want to share, and maybe we could share it at the end of our talk today so we can jump right into this wonderful story that you have. So Mary is going to share with us one of her DNA cases that she, I guess, broke through, and it was really fascinating. It involved trying to find the father of an 88-year-old woman. Is that correct? The biological father for that 88-year-old woman?
Right. Mhm.
Great. I would love go ahead and jump right into that story if you don't mind, and we'll see what we can learn from you today.
Okay. Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me and letting me talk about this. I do a lot of unknown parentage work. And in this case, she was 88 years old, probably my oldest client, although I have a few in their 80s. And when she was a little 18-month-old, she and her parents were visiting her mom's relatives. And there was a family fight. And her father said, "Okay, go get the baby, get in the car. We are leaving." And they went to their apartment, which was nearby, and he left them there. And then he got in the car and drove off, and never to be seen again. So she had no recollection of him, being so young. And the family, of course, didn't like him for abandoning them. Um, her mom did have his name and his parents' name. So as you can imagine, since she's currently 88, her parents were born a long time ago, and he was much older than her mother. So he
Mhm.
was born in 1895.
Okay.
And then she had his parents' name. So we've got Thomas Taylor, a very common name, Taylor, from Chicago. So, not only is it a common name, it's this, giant pool of people. And her mother's note said that Thomas's parents were William and Emma.
Okay.
So you can build a family tree with a little bit of information. Um, Luckily, with people who are born that far ago, you can start to make some progress in building a tree on Ancestry. We do have the problem of being common names, and she did do DNA testing to help, and the DNA found some pretty good relatives on her dad's side of the family.
Mhm.
Kind of a second cousin, or maybe second cousin once removed, and they had the Taylor name in their trees. So this looks good because you know we've got that common name, but they've got the Taylors, and they had William and Emma. So it's like, wow, this looks good. This is very promising. This is going to be a piece of cake.
Mhm.
And but looking through the census records, the William and Emma who were in the DNA matches trees, they did not have a son named Thomas.
Oh,
So, what's up? Like,
what's up with
what
that?
up, it lines up, but it doesn't line up. And
Right.
so it's like, well, maybe it's not so easy. Maybe this is gonna not be solvable. Um, I added in the children, and there were 3 boys and 2 girls, and I could connect those DNA matches to some of those children.
Mhm.
And so it made sense that I've got the right William and Emma. I've got his parents, but who was this Thomas?
Yeah, so that definitely brings up you have the DNA, the science behind it, but those traditional records were not shedding light on who he was.
Hmm.
Interesting. Oh my
Right.
gosh. What was your next step? Did you seek out other traditional types of genealogy records at that point? Um, or I don't know. Did you find a Thomas anywhere in that Taylor family?
Um, well, I did look at other record types, and one of the things was draft records. So
Mm,
I was looking for those records and attaching them to the various kids in that family. And one thing that popped out at me was that they had a son, Charles, who was born in 1895.
okay.
And that was the year her birth father was born.
Mhm.
And it was the same month and year.
Interesting.
So we've got this son who he's not Thomas, he's Charles,
Mhm.
but he has the same birth date that her father is supposed to have.
Was there a middle initial or a middle name anywhere in there or
On some records it was Thomas E. It just like nothing could take those names and explain. I think maybe what you sometimes see is somebody starts to use their middle name and
Mhm.
not their first name. But there was nothing clear like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And and in doing that research on the family, so this all those siblings, I did notice that the oldest brother had changed his first name.
Oh,
And it was another like completely different name.
how did you figure out that he had changed his name? What was your clue
I c-
there? Or is
that's
that
a
gonna
that's
or
a
is
great
that
question. Well, you know how Ancestry will say, I think I have a record for you.
Mhm.
And they did that for this brother. And I saw the record and I thought, like, well, that's a record for Gordon, and I'm looking at John and like, why are you showing me a record for a Gordon when I don't see Gordon in the census?
Right.
And when I worked and looked at everything that was there, I realized, well, sometimes Ancestry knows more than you know, right?
Mhm.
Somebody else has figured out that Gordon and John are the same guy.
Okay.
So, we've got the oldest brother that changed his name. And I don't know, I don't know if it was, sometimes we have people changing names because of the wars. Um,
Mhm.
I don't know. It was really surprising. I don't know what was going on. So
Interesting.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just, like, okay, well, we have like I can see how the older brother changed his name. The earlier records was the original and the later records were all
Mhm.
in that second name. And I decided to go back to that Charles who had the right birthday.
Mhm.
And I found some draft records, and he was the right age that not only was there a World War One record that seemed to be him, there was a World War Two record that seemed to be him.
Okay.
And we've got that really, really common surname. Uh, but there were addresses showing up on these draft records. Where
Mhm.
do you live? Who's your next of kin?
Mhm.
And on the next of kin, it had his sister by her married name,
Okay.
and the address was correct.
Okay.
It was an address that I had seen before.
Mhm.
So I thought, okay, okay, good. I've got these draft records that I think are for our guy,
Right.
our Thomas, or I don't know if do I call him Thomas or Charles? But I think I have it. And when people are looking for birth parents, they a lot of times they want to know, well, who was this person? What was his occupation? Was he the youngest child or the oldest child? All of
Mhm.
those questions. And a lot of times people want to know, like, what did they die of? How long did they live? Things like that.
Right.
And those draft records, they're really nice. They've got a lot of information.
They do. They do. Absolutely.
So in the very first one, it said that he was an actor and that he worked for this
Hmm.
like theater company,
Mhm.
and he traveled.
Oh.
So he didn't have an address that was listed because he
Mhm.
traveled with the theater. And on the second one, it said that he worked at the Chicago Air College,
Okay.
and it had the address of the college.
Mhm.
And I googled Chicago Air College.
I was gonna say, what is the Chicago Air College? Please tell me, because I do not
Yes, a
know.
million a million times. Right, because I was thinking Air College, so nothing came up
Right.
on Google. Air College, is that like a radio, a school that you go to learn about the airwaves and
Right.
how to be on radio? And he had been an actor, so that that seems logical. Um, or could the Air College be related to airplanes and aeronautics? I don't know.
Right. And does it still exist today?
It does not.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe I wouldn't think that name would exist, but I didn't know if it still existed in some form or fashion that might have records type thing. So,
Mhm, mhm. Right, right, and it had an address too.
hmm.
So I Googled the address,
Mhm.
you know, and, what stood on that plot of land in Chicago was a theater that in 1905 burned, and like 600 people died.
Oh my word.
They had the fire exits were nailed shut, and it
No
was
way.
like right around the holidays, so all of these like moms and children were there, and it a whole bunch of people died. It was
Mhm.
horrible.
Oh my gosh.
And so then I'm thinking, like, how do I put these pieces together? Like, we're kind of back to the theater, and he's an actor, but if it burned to the ground in 1905, and he, on his World War II draft card, so 1940s,
Mhm.
he's saying, I work at the Chicago Air College, and here's the address. I kept on trying to make the pieces fit together.
Mhm. Right.
And
Did you ever resolve that piece?
well, luckily, I had been having coffee with this friend of mine who's a retired archivist.
Mhm.
And she mentioned to me that Google Books is an excellent resource for
Yeah.
finding things,
Mm.
as you know.
Yes. Oh, I love Google Books. You guys know I love Google Books.
So I thought, okay, like, I'm going to bring up Google Books and put in Chicago Air College. And sure enough, there was an ad from a popular mechanics magazine for the Chicago Air College. And they had classes for people interested in careers related to airplanes. So
Okay.
pilots, mechanics, and things like that. So Chicago, now I know it's not, it's the airplane kind of air, not the radio kind of air.
Right.
And the nice thing about that little advertisement was that it had the address for the Chicago Air College,
Mhm.
which was right next door to that theater that burned down.
Okay. Nice.
So
Nice.
I'm like, Oh, when people are filling out their draft cards, they have to report a lot of information,
Mhm.
and, you know, sometimes it's all correct, and sometimes we have these little errors in it.
Yeah, absolutely, especially when it comes to work things. If you're not used to getting mail there or something, you might not remember the exact number of that house or I'm sorry, that place of employment. So,
Mhm.
absolutely, I see how that could happen. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, it's just yeah, it was like the golden piece of, like, what we know. We know a couple other things about him,
Mhm,
from other census records and other types of records. But like I could go back to her and say, here's where he worked, and this is what they did. There was um, some of the family thought that he was a chauffeur because he had a fancy car.
mhm.
And I don't know if I don't know if that weaves into him working at the Chicago Air College. Uh, but now we've got that.
That is fascinating. So Google Books to the rescue again, right?
Yay.
Yay.
Right, right, and it taught me that Google itself isn't, if you put a search into Google, it's not going into those other places like Google Books.
Mhm,
It's a you're searching a finite set of information that isn't going over. At least when I searched, the way I set it up, I wasn't accessing those Google Books
mhm.
records.
And that's a good point, yeah. I mean, it's the same thing, you don't typically if you do a Google search, you're not gonna get the images coming up unless your search is so obscure that that's all Google has to look at kinda thing. So, yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely, I think that's a good point to make is that we may be doing our Google searches, but we need to make sure we're searching the other Google, um, platforms as well, like the Google Books or Google, newspapers kind of thing. So that's an
Mhm.
excellent point on that. Did you ever figure out why he changed his name?
Well, he so my client, the 88-year-old, and she has been in contact with her DNA matches,
Mhm.
and they remember him.
Oh,
And it sounds like he had a very long life. Like on his World War I draft record, it said he was married,
okay. I was
and
gonna ask.
nobody knows you know who this was. This first wife.
Mm,
He was a character. That kind of personal. They were saying, okay, right, that makes sense that
mhm.
he would have married your mom, had a baby, and then just decided, I'm doing something completely different. You
Wow.
know, I'm leaving Wisconsin where they lived, and I'm going back to Chicago, and I'm done with that, and I'm moving on.
Mhm. And did he ever remarry did he ever just start another family somewhere at all, or was he always single after that?
As
I
far as I know, he was single after that.
mean, I guess technically he was still married if they didn't divorce, but, well, I wanted to circle back to his you talked about him being an actor at one point. Would he have been, the actor of the would he have been in any of the directories that sometimes theaters or actor societies will put out? I've seen some of those, I think they tend to be a little bit later, but I've seen some of those out there under directories. Would he have been in some of those? I don't know that much about Chicago. Typically, the ones I see are more from California area kind of thing.
Right. Well, that's a great question. I don't know. I didn't realize that there were actor directories.
They are. I'm trying to think where I found that. I think it was on Ancestry, but the one I saw was actually for motion pictures out in California, one of the motion picture studios. So I was just curious. I don't know that much about that whole thing as far as would he have been, but it sounds like he changed his whole career. I mean, if he went to the air college, and it sounds like he kinda changed what he was doing and that kind of thing. So, yeah. So
Right.
when your client, you said she reached out to her DNA matches, were they it sounds like they were very receptive to her?
Mhm,
and
mhm.
welcoming to her, so that's a good were they able to provide her with other stories about, like, her grandparents, who her grandparents were and what they were like? You said you had names, but I didn't know, um, were
Right. There weren't well, the really nice big thing that she got from them was a photograph of him.
wow.
So a photograph when he was a young man and, so now she has a picture of her father.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Uh,
That's absolutely wonderful to have that, so we have a couple comments over there that have showed up. So I said, "Sounds like how she searches for the few missing persons in the family tree." Yes, you start going down those not rabbit holes, but you have to start going to those obscure things such as the Chicago Air College, those more obscure type of information. We can't just stick with what we have on Ancestry. We have to follow all those clues out further. And she also said it's truly amazing what we find out about our ancestors when we really start digging around. Isn't that the truth? I found a few things I probably shouldn't have, but that's another story
mhm.
kind of thing. So, well, that I think that is incredible that she was able to do that. So, had she been looking all along for her father? Or because she was at 88 at a more advanced age, or was this something she had just sort of started? What was her motivation at that point to reach out and to hire you to help her?
Well, I think she had always wondered, and she asked her cousins and I
Mhm,
asked family members, but she just had a little health issue.
mhm.
She fell and hit her head
Oh, no.
and realized, like, "I need to figure this out."
Mhm.
So that's when she reached out to me.
Okay, okay, kind of started to feel a little bit of that urgency and stuff. So so Kathy said we were talking about the directory. She said vaudeville had list, so that's good to know,
Hmm,
that they would have
okay.
had list. And Mary Jane said, "Did her mom have a wedding record?"
She had, a the marriage
Mhm.
document, and they also had a birth announcement from the local paper.
Okay.
So, there are those pieces that she had, and, he was Thomas in the birth announcement, and I think in the wedding license also.
Mhm. And so once he left, do you get a sense that it was after he left that he changed his name to Charles, maybe not to be found or, um, something
Maybe,
like that, maybe?
maybe. Mhm.
Who really knows? I know I've had ancestors who changed their name and honest to this day, we don't know, and people who knew them directly, and they're like, "Well, I don't think he liked it." I'm like, "Okay,
Right, right, yeah, it
whatever."
could just be.
Um, yeah, so I know it always wonders because it really didn't take anything to change your name. He could
Right.
simply stop using one and start using another, and that's all
Mhm.
she wrote, basically.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's an interesting thought. Wait, I'm just curious, where was he in the birth order? Was he an older son or
He's
was he a younger son?
the youngest.
The youngest, so
Yeah.
interesting. Um,
Right. And
so
I was going to add that, that photograph that she had, I was able to use that in putting together a book for her.
oh, nice. Okay.
And Ancestry has the, uh, the benefit of being able to create a book.
Mhm,
It's under the extra pull-down menu,
mhm,
and it goes to another company. I don't know if Ancestry owns them or what, but it syncs your information that you have at Ancestry with the book. So it'll populate the book and create a first draft.
mhm,
In her case, she wanted a book to give to her children, and she didn't care about her mom's side of the family because they all knew her
mhm,
mom. So I deleted out all of the pages about her mom, and then it's really easy to add in new pages. So I added in new pages. I included the photo. I included the the uh, the thing I found in Google Books which was the popular mechanic advertisement from the
Mhm.
Chicago Air College. And at the very back, I included some correspondence with the DNA matches.
Gotcha.
So it's just I wanted to pull in everything so that down the road, if her kids or grandkids want to look and see more about their grandfather or great grandfather, they will have something that they can look at.
Yeah, that is a great way to do that. I had used the Ancestry done the book from Ancestry years ago when actually I think it was still owned by Ancestry, but I know that a different company has it now.
Okay.
And, yeah, but I think I haven't used them yet, but I have plans in the future as I'm closing in on a story for
Mhm.
somebody. So, Erica says, "Are there court records to change a name legally?" I don't know when that would have now you would need court records about legally changing a name, but for most of our ancestors, that was not an issue. They could it I actually talked to Judy Russell about this one time and asked her, and she's like, in those early 1900s, she's like, "Nope, you could just do what you wanted," kind of thing. So when you wanted to change your name, you just did it. So I'm not 100% sure when the legalities of that would come in as far as court. I don't know. Do you have an idea, Mary, with your background?
Oh, well, the only thing I would add is that after 9/11, it became much more difficult, in terms of what you needed to supply and getting approval to change your name.
Mhm, mhm.
But of course, before that, you had to go through some legal proceeding, but I don't know when that happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I was surprised because I was trying to do the same thing, was trying to find the evidence to connect the dots on an ancestor, and she's like, "Don't bother.
Mhm.
Don't bother looking for that one." I said, "Okay." So definitely. Alright, what a fascinating story, and just the fact that I love that you use, what we think of as modern, the DNA, but you're using traditional genealogy records, which I think we always have to remember goes hand in hand with that DNA. We can't really have one without the other, in most cases, and then, of course, you're bringing in outside sources such as Google Books and those types of resources, which are important to use as well. So I think it's great. It's a great way of showing how to find those pieces of the puzzle and kind of using traditional but non-traditional as well. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh, thank you for letting
No,
me. I
no
appreciate it.
problem.
Yeah, it's a great story, and it always feels so good to be able to provide answers to people, and they have get those pieces that were missing from their family tree, and
Mhm.
then they get that peace of mind in just knowing, like, okay, I took care of this, and now my kids can have it, and my
Right,
grandkids, and
right.
it's just really nice.
Yeah, excellent. Well, now changing the subject a little bit, I know that you have something new over on the DNA Hunters that you're developing, so I'd love to hear more about that if you want to share anything about that.
Yes. Oh, thanks so much. We are starting a new membership society called the DNA Hunters Society, and it will include a library of videos on different aspects of DNA testing, and it will also have Q&A sessions with me. So throughout the month, we will do Q&A sessions, and then it also will have a community forum. So where people can ask questions in the forum, members can answer it. I will be in the forum, and it's a nice substitute, especially now when we don't have our regular genealogy meetings. The in-person meetings are just on hold, I think,
Right.
indefinitely. And I've heard people saying that they really miss. We can do it virtually, but then we don't have the community. Like, we can't go have dinner with people after the talks. So this will provide the community. And I have a freebie, which is a brand new DNA roadmap. And that is available at dnahunters.com / AYMC for Are You My
Mhm.
Cousin? And
All right,
it's been revised. It's now 6 pages long, and that will get you on the mailing list, and then through the mailing list, I will provide more information about the membership. Or you can check it out on the website, which is dnahunters.com.
Great. I am dropping that link into the chat box right now. And let's see if I can write it. There are a couple comments we can. Is it DNA Hunters? I can. Hunters.com, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Slash.
I was checking the comments.
Oh yeah, that's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, Marie. Yes, I forgot, but thank you for reminding me that you're adopted. That's great.
Okay, I think I got that spelled right now. And if you were watching this on replay, I will have that link in the comment section below, so you'll have that as well. Yeah, that's right. Oh yes, Marie, I think that's great. I had forgotten that you were adopted as well. So yes, I've got the link there for you guys. As I said, I'll have it in the comments below or in the description below. And somebody brought up, Mary Jane brought up a comment too about name changes when we were talking to Germans. People of German descent often change their names after or during or after the war, Second World War. Yes, definitely we're seeing some of that. And then of course, people who would anglicize a name type thing too. So those name changes can get tricky, and that can be an entire other YouTube live, definitely on that, with that kind of thing. And if you guys are interested, Mary she did do another, she did a previous YouTube live with us, and she's done a post on that over on the website as well. So that one's focused more on adoption. And so you can head over to the post to the website. Actually, I can give that to you too. And see Mary's post there as well with more of a focus on that adoption type thread, finding parents, unknown parents. So let me pop that in there as well. So you've got that. All right, guys, do you have any other questions out there? Thank you so much, Mary, for coming. I really appreciate you. It's always fun to have a fellow genealogy researcher on here with me, especially someone who is as skilled as you are at DNA, because that is, as I said, not my forte. But that's why, because I know I have people who do know how to do it. So that's why I can not have to worry about it quite as much. So I do thank you for that and appreciate you coming again to talk with us. Guys, thank you so much. Feel free, again, hit that subscribe button before you leave so that you will get notice of all the videos that I post and our future lives as well. I will be back here next Thursday. We will be talking on our YouTube live next week about old handwriting and reading old handwriting. And I've got some tips for you, and I want to show you some things to help you perhaps decipher some of this old handwriting that can be so difficult to read. Definitely. I think you'll enjoy that. So be sure and come back for that. And of course, feel free to share this. I'd love it if you would share it, the video with other friends if you're interested. All right, guys, I will see you next week. You guys are welcome. Oh, thanks so much. So glad you enjoyed it, guys. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Lisa.
You're welcome.